working people, right? The big question, what is a working person? Have a look at Keir Starmer trying to answer it.
And I think everybody watching this will know whether they're in this category, because you carry in that situation a sort of knot in the bottom of the stomach, which is, if push comes to shove and something happens to me and my family, I can't just get a chequebook out, even though I've maybe got a bit of saving. But they're the people that in a way, I came into politics to try and make sure they had secure jobs, didn't have the anxiety of public services not working, and felt genuinely better off with better opportunities. That's what I have in my mind's eye.
OK, so for someone who works but gets their income from assets as well, such as shares of property, are they a working person?
Well, they wouldn't come within my definition.
So their taxes could go up?
Yeah, I mean, you can probably give me any number of examples.
Yeah, we could give you any number of examples. Sir Keir Starmer, the man who wouldn't know a working person if he fell over one. Trevor Kavanagh's here. Trevor, very good morning to you.
Good morning, mate.
Why is he so incapable of actually defining anything? You know, first of all, he couldn't define what a woman was. Now he can't seem to define what a working person is.
You're right. I think that he simply cannot answer a question and will not answer a question on any subject whatsoever, and hasn't done since he became Prime Minister. He keeps saying, for instance, that he's not going to discuss what's in the budget, and yet everybody else is leaking everything that's going to be in the budget, including, as you've referred to just now, this increase in the borrowing limits. And, you know, the definition of a worker is shrinking and shrinking every day with Labour. It now really actually only applies to those who work for the public sector and are therefore members of the public sector trade union movement.
Yes, although in fairness, I mean, if he's saying that nobody who's got anything to their name, i.e. any kind of private pension or any kind of, you know, mortgage or any kind of savings is technically a working person, I mean, an awful lot of well-paid public sector workers will have all of those things.
Yes, I know, but the whole emphasis of the budget, as far as we can see it now, is to splurge money on public sector improvements, improving the health service, for instance. But the improvements that could be made in all of the public sector are by efficiency and productivity savings. Much of the money that's already been splurged on the NHS is simply disappearing through the cracks and in the pavement that are the chaotic working practices of the NHS. But it's not just the NHS, it's all of the public sector. And I think that they should take a clean of new brooms through the whole sector, and bring in artificial intelligence and make, I think, about 20% of the public service redundant.
But we well know that that's one of the things they will certainly not do, because when you talk about this restructuring of our debt, somebody pointed out to me, maybe they're just going to call it irregular debt, like they call irregular migration instead of illegal migration. But I said earlier in the show, it's a bit like me going to my mortgage company and saying, oh, by the way, that mortgage I've got with you, just do away with it, just put it over there. We're not going to pay that anymore. And by the way, lend me some more money so I can buy a nice car. I mean, that's kind of the politics of Rachel Reeves' economics, isn't it?
It is, and, you know, the Tories got a lot wrong, but Jeremy Hunt is absolutely right to say that we are already borrowing up to the hilt and beyond. And if we add to that another 50 billion worth of borrowing, we're going to put pressure on the financial markets and, in particular, on interest rates and mortgage rates, which will hit working people. So, you know, this is stealing from Paul, one side of pay another. It doesn't work, it won't work, and it'll rapidly be found to be inoperative. We'll find ourselves paying more for less, and unemployment will rise as a result.
Yeah, and on reparations, which of course is the big problem he's got out in Samoa, let's have a look at what Keir Starmer had to say.
I'm just clear in my mind that, yes, we must acknowledge history and absolutely recognise the abhorrence of the slave trade, and that's very important. But at the same time, we have to answer the question, which is being put to me, which is, how can you help us with resilience now?
I mean, it's very clear, Trevor, isn't it, that he's moving his position already, because while he was on the plane out there, 28 hours of a very, very boring flight, I could imagine. I can't imagine anything worse than being stuck. I feel a bit bad for Ryan Saby, who was stuck on a plane with him. he was saying basically, you know, no reparations, you know, no conversations, absolutely no budging on anything like that. And as soon as he said that, I thought, well, we'll see about that, because every time he says he's not going to do something, he usually ends up doing it. He's now clearly making noises about some kind of possible non-cash reparation, which might involve either cancelling debt or kind of giving investment money for something.
Yes, I mean, Keir Starmer has built an entire career on flip-flopping on every stand that he's taken on a matter of principle. And all the clues are in there, as you've rightly pointed out. The weasel words, I think that the idea that we are going to stand firm, someone like Keir Starmer, standing firm against human rights. I mean, he's a human rights lawyer. And these people of the Commonwealth Caribbean countries in particular, with a history of slavery, will be pushing, and he will find it very difficult to resist, especially when he's there in person, facing them face to face and listening to their demands, with which he will, as a left-wing Labour politician, sympathise.
Well, that is the problem. I mean, we've got a foreign secretary who actually said that as a Caribbean man, those were his words, he wants reparations.
Yes, he's on the record, not just at the moment, but throughout his political career, as saying that reparations are the way forward. And this is not helped by the rather liberal monarch. The King Charles is actually saying that now is the time is right for the conversation about this. The Archbishop of Canterbury, who is one of his best mates, is saying the same thing, that we've got to start talking about reparation, and indeed is devoted £100 million worth of Church of England money, which is non-existent as far as I know, to reparation. So this is on the cards, and I think that Starmer, as I say, tends towards sympathising with these claims and will cave in one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. Let's talk briefly about the migrant situation. It looks as though now we've already passed the point of no return. More migrants have arrived under Labour than had arrived during the same period last year. You know, people say to me, well, it's because it's the summer and all of that from July till now. Yes, partly, but also it means that they're now coming in even greater numbers and still there is no plan to deal with them. And we've got another story here. The Home Office has confirmed that work to close the former RAF Scampton has now begun, despite the fact that they spent £60 million on it, the Home Office. It's not going to be used to house migrants, so where are they going to put them?
Well, we're going to give them visas, Mike. We're not going to keep them in hostels anymore. We're going to vet them, of course, and then let them straight in. And the Labour government is against migration controls, basically. We hear today that Morgan McSweeney, who has replaced Sue Gray as Labour's Chief of Staff in Downing Street, has warned MPs that if they don't wake up to the need to curb immigration, particularly illegal or irregular immigration, then they will lose seats to Nigel Farage's Reform Party. Yeah. Well, that's already on the cards, frankly. I don't think there's anything that Labour's going to do at the next election, particularly in the local elections, and in the looming next general election, to stop Nigel Farage marauding through their territory.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything they can do. I think it's totally and utterly out of their control. Let's talk about the great story on the front page of The Sun this morning, the hunt for Bread October, one of the great headlines, but a serious story because it turns out that a nuclear submarine ran so low on food during a 6-month patrol that the sailors were ordered to share rations. I mean, how on earth can something like that happen?
Well, it beggars belief, doesn't it, Mike? I mean, they set off on these missions, and admittedly, in this case, the mission was extended because of shortage of other submarines. I mean, basically, we're a one-ship navy at the moment because everything's in dock or under repair or not setting sail at all. So, I mean, how can you set off for a 6-month voyage under the waves with not enough food to keep your crew alive? I mean, if what we're hearing is that they're actually running to the point of being afraid of starvation or exhaustion. This is just unbelievable. Why can't they surface for a couple of hours and get some replenishments?
Well, you would like to think so, but in a similar vein, the front page of the Telegraph this morning, the armed forces are not ready to fight a war, according to Defence Secretary John Healey. It's not a great place to be, is it?
Well, it's long been the case that we couldn't do another Falklands. I mean, for decades, in fact. Almost the Falklands was the last war that we were able to fight, or conflict. And we've steadily downgraded our armed forces in numbers and equipment. ever since. And frankly, if we had to deal with something like what Ukraine is facing, we wouldn't be able to do so. We'd have to borrow, beg and steal stuff from other people.
Yeah, well, maybe we could get back some of the stuff we've given to Ukraine. You never know. Trevor, thanks very much indeed. Trevor Kavanagh, former political columnist, former political editor, of course, at The Sun.